Hello, and welcome to BitThink with me, Christina, from Bermuda. This episode, this second video, as you can see from the title, is a form of fangirlism and curated crypto YouTube TV recommendations for anybody who's coming newly to the space and perhaps doesn't have vast amounts of free time to really delve as deeply into the amazing space that is developing and has developed over the last few months, as I have been lucky enough to have. So this video in the first instance is a form of, in all seriousness, acknowledgement and thanks to those imaginations and voices that are in this space and who are directly responsible for my education on many of the aspects to do with the cryptosphere in the last number of months. So I hope that you who are viewing enjoy this collection and kind of quick romp through the various types of broadcasters that there are. I do want to say that my categorization of broadcasters is very loose. Most of the gentlemen in the space speak about any number of and combination of angles, aspects, and bring together collections of specialty. So I do want to make sure that it's clear that I appreciate all of the things that they're doing, and the way in which I've organized them in my categories is really a reflection on what I personally have found to be the most valuable parts of what it is that they contribute and do for YouTube viewers. I also wanted to just also acknowledge, as I was putting the video together, the thing that really struck me was how global and international the space is. As I look at the people who I have come to really return to and appreciate every time I listen to them, I'm struck by how many points on the globe I'm interacting with. I definitely noticed also that I want to work more on finding what kind of conversation is coming out of South America, and I'm currently working with a good friend in Peru to help me access what is happening down there on that continent. So with any further ado, I am going to move on to my first category of YouTubers. So the first group I've called here intellectual and conceptual framers. Framers is a pretty ugly word, but framework makers. And definitely, I think anybody coming to the cryptosphere for the first time, and those who've been in it for a while, and those who've been in it for a really long time, should continue to check back in with and keep always in mind when developing your own particular sub-interests. You may be more interested in mining, you may be more interested in investing, you may be more interested in the social implications. Whatever it is that you find that you're really into as you use Bitcoin to get into the cryptosphere. These are the people who have given me the most stimulative and useful ways of understanding what is happening in the space from a broader perspective, let's say. Or just a purely intellectual one. So let's have a look. So first of all, we have, of course, Andreas Antonopoulos. I think others have spoken eloquently and at length with regards to how he is, for sure, the leading intellectual voice, and his capacity to articulate and speak is worth listening to, even if you are a deep skeptic and intend to remain a deep skeptic. He's a gifted speaker and a gifted thinker, and I definitely have found myself quoting him and spreading his articulation of many, many, many of the most important parts of what decentralized, permissionless systems mean. Moving on, I want to speak about Mr. Daniel Krawisz. And forgive me if I'm getting your last name pronunciation wrong. Here, Daniel, who is a multi-talented individual and produces always stimulating forms of art or insight or just raw intellectual power. Here, I think a new viewer to the space and anyone who's in the space should really listen to carefully and think carefully about what Daniel is saying about what it means to be an investor. I think, as I said in my first video, there are a lot of conceptual tools and mathematical tools and so on that, in order for them to be successfully transported into the cryptosphere, we do need to tweak them, shape them, re-examine them, sharpen them, make sure that they're appropriate for what is and will be for the rest of our lifetimes an emerging, growing version of 3.0 everything, including capitalism, including industrialism, including investing. So Daniel's thought processes on how to think about being an investor and what the relationships are between investors and the various other people and players in the market and the community are really worth having a listen to. Mr. Hart. I have found Mr. Hart to be consistently worth listening to. As somebody who is just finishing up an online law degree, I got to say that I have heard Mr. Hart articulate concepts that relate to legal and jurisdictional issues and considerations that are just incredibly pleasurable to listen to, especially if one has waded one's way through all kinds of verbose and messy and imprecise articulations of the same kinds of ideas. I do think that he also has an excellent voice for articulating a type of libertarianism that I think is far truer to the roots of libertarianism rather than the forms of, let's say, fundamentalism that exist in any thought process when taken by its adherents to extreme simplistic propositions. So I encourage everybody to listen to what Mr. Hart has to say. And I find myself having, conversations in my head in a completely sane way with these folks, because I find what they are talking about to be so stimulative, and they have helped my thought processes not only grow, but kind of rearrange themselves in new ways, which is, very exciting. I also want to mention Trace Mayer, who I think is also a deeply articulate and convincing voice in the Bitcoin world. I'm somebody who has been reading Zero Hedge along with The Motley Fool since at least 2011, and I have been aware of and following Bitcoin since then, since early 2012, as a Mac user since 1989. I did look into mining at one point, but it did not seem to be compatible with me in any way at that point. So I am kind of impressed with the ways in which Trace is able to kind of mobilize a stream of conversation tropes that exist in the hard money universe, and talk to them coherently about how gold in particular and cryptocurrencies are not an anathema to each other. So I recommend that you take a look at his work also. Okay, these are my how-to expert guys. These are the guys I go to understand really important practical stuff and fairly complicated technical stuff. So whether you are trying to figure out what is a wallet, how do I hold it, where do I get it, how do I even think about what these things are that are holding it and storing it and so on. Technical terms, ideas around proof of work, proof of stake, what the difference between Ethereum, EOS, and Bitcoin is, how to actually practically translate the concept of mining, which for most people means something that's really hard to translate into a digital universe, Earth and machines and darkness, and just a whole host of other useful, practical educational information are the guys in this category. And I just want to say thank you for turning me into somebody who feels like I at least know what I'm doing on a basic level. Alrighty, here we have the most excellent Ivan on tech. This young gentleman has definitely done an enormous amount to educate me and a vast number of people. And I can't speak highly enough of his capacity to speak coherently to you and make you feel like you are not techno-crippled, and that you too can easily grasp a lot of what are understood to be really difficult concepts. He's a gifted educator, and he speaks profoundly well on all kinds of subjects. I think he also has an awful lot of coherent things to say about the future of investing in the space, and how to assess the various projects that are in the space. But I would say that certainly from a how-to newbie point of view, Ivan is definitely the place to start. I would say that you should also quickly move to take a look at the channel of box mining. I think of Ivan and box mining in the same kind of genre, and I think they're both doing a similarly excellent job of being very careful and clear to differentiate between what is their personal opinion about anything and what kind of just information they are presenting. And I think if there were a theme that united the various people that I find myself watching repetitively, it is their ability to differentiate between the two, personal opinion and range of information. I want to say hello here to Mr. Sunny Decree. I think Sunny's channel is a very useful place for anybody who wants to get an insight into how somebody sitting in a suburban or urban or kind of micro-life lifestyle can participate in the various types of mining opportunities that there are. I think the future does involve mass participation in mining. I will probably make a short video on what I think some of the social implications are there, which are extremely positive. I think it's how we actually get mass scale adoption of alternative energy, and also it may be a way to create a universal passive income. We'll see. But I do think that amongst the range of things that Sunny discusses, one should go and take a look at what he has to share by way of his personal journey with various types of mining options. And then again on mining, I wanted to just point out this channel, which is, great to see coming out of Georgia. This space is so influenced and supported by Eastern European imaginations and brains that I thought that kind of going on the journey of somebody who is running a small scale, not an industrial genesis size, but small scale kind of